Okay, everybody, change the schedule this evening. I apologize. Prayers go out to Jimmy Jean. He is not feeling well. So everybody on the audience, please play for Jimmy. Hopefully that he's able to recover. But tonight with me, I do have the Epic Journeyman from Into the Microcosm. How you doing this evening, Epic? You there? So this evening we're going to talk about some things in the news. We're going to talk about G-Men, the Men in Black. We're going to mix things up a little bit. I thought we start today's story with something I came across, I believe, this morning. I know it was when I saw it this morning, but it was actually a story from what happened yesterday. Death toll climbs in Mexican cartel shootout as more United States citizens identified. The FBI has opened an investigation into the massacre of United States citizens gunned down by drug cartels in northern Mexico, as the death toll has climbed to 9, including 3 women, 8-month-old twins, and 4 other children, according to reports. The victims, dual U.S.-Mexico citizens with ties to Utah, were allegedly caught in the crossfire of 2 cartels in the border states of Sonora, near where the worship of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The family lived in La Mora, a Mormon community about 70 miles south of Douglas, Arizona. Kendra Lee Miller, a relative, identified the victims as Christina Marie Langford Johnson, 29, Donna Langford, 43, Trevor Langford, 11, Rogan Langford, 2, Rodina Marie Miller, 30, Howard Miller, 12, Crystal Miller, 10, and 8-month-old twins Titus and Tiana Miller. Julian LeBaron said his cousin was traveling with her 4 kids to the airport when they came under fire. It was a massacre, LeBaron, an activist who has denounced gangs in the area, told Formula Radio, according to AFP. His cousin's van was set ablaze with the victims inside, he added. 2 other vehicles, found several hours later, contained the bodies of 2 women and a boy and a girl. At least 5 other children, of whom was wounded, managed to escape and walk home, and a girl was reported missing after having fled into the woods to hide, LeBaron said. We asked who might be responsible for the bloodshed. LeBaron said the attack took place in a war zone, home to drug cartels and thugs. The families may have been caught in the crossfire, targeted by mistake. We don't know the cause, he told AFP, adding to the Mormon community had recently been the target of threats. The community are a descendant of Mormons who fled the United States in the 19th century after being persecuted for their traditions, including polygamy. Many Mormons in Mexico enjoy dual Mexican and U.S. citizenship, and the LeBron family asked for the help of the United States Embassy. Another relative, John LeBron, posted on his Facebook page that his aunt and another woman were dead, and that 6 of his aunt kids have been left abandoned, but alive, along a road. He added that a total of 17 of his family members were in a 3-vehicle convoy when it came under attack. He said 6 were wounded and left unharmed. Willie Jessup, a relative of the victims, told NBC News from Utah that the family has been trying to mobilize Mexican federal authorities and were touched with the FBI. Everyone is in such shock, he told the network. It's just unbelievable, and there's no way to comprehend it. El Universal, one of Mexico's largest newspapers, devoted other family members to saying that their relatives were killed in what appeared to be an organized crime ambush. So what do you think of this story so far, Epic? I know this morning when I saw it on Drudge, I found it, I was thinking, I was like, wow, Mormons. Mormon Mafia is very high in the Council for National Policy. I was like, I wonder if anything else is going to come out about this. I found it to be very weird. What about you?
definition, they might have some motivation to hit these Mormon convoys, and also to try to extort them, and because obviously, um, they should have known once the first carload started trying to run for cover. Uh, and I know kidnappings are pretty common down there now too. South America also is really common with anybody who has any kind of money as a target, basically. So it could have been a extortion scam that they didn't pay up and they took it out on them. That's possible too, because they have a church down there, right? Like a commune down there. That's what I understand.
Yeah, sorry, Epic. For some reason I had my settings incorrectly, so about half the stuff you said no one heard. I'm
That's
sorry
all right.
about that. But yeah, to reiterate what you said, you heard about it this morning around the same time I did, and you found it a bit odd that so many people were killed, and they kept adjusting the numbers over a short period of time. And then, of course, come to find out later that they're Mormons. And then on top of that, we're going to talk about in a minute, it even gets crazier. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The thing about this is there's several well-known, I won't say well-known up here in America, they've been brought up before, but satanic cults down there. I mean, literally the worst of the worst, human sacrifice, all that kind of stuff. And it just seems odd to me that this is a group of Mormons that maybe they weren't being targeted because they thought they were a rival, a drug cartel, but that they were actually being targeted because just the fact they were Mormons, right? And more likely, it seems like this is the kind of thing that they would try to extort them for originally, and it might be some kind of payback for not paying up. I mean, that's all conjecture, of course, but that seems a lot more likely than a drug cartel crossfire because, like we are saying, once those kids start running out, once the people start running out of the car, and they're obviously not from Mexico, yeah, they would know they had made a mistake, but they continued to fire. So, but they made a point of letting some people go too, which I find odd. I mean, after the fact that they made a point of burning the cars, riddling the cars with bullets, but that they let certain people walk off. Yeah, there's all kinds of signs there that seem to suggest that they wanted somebody to walk back and tell the story, right? I mean, it almost looks that way to me. What do you think about that? Are you muted, John?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I very much agree with you on that, Epic.
Yeah.
Technical.
So can we put some history there? I'm sorry, I just thought about it. I think the first one that came out like this was early '90s, right? Or maybe no, maybe actually in the '80s when they had that was 141, I believe it was, people they found the skeletons and everything of the people in this one. It wasn't a commune. It was whatever we call it, plantation basically down in Mexico that this cult was running out of. It was a drug cartel, but they'd sacrificed all these Westerners, and then they had that busload, a couple like 10, 12 years ago. And that was like 30 something, right? And that's been going on for a long time. And these are all people, very, very Caucasian, basically people from America that are being taken down and taken out that way. And you know, at first it's just, well, these people disappeared. It wasn't for that one big group that was a 30 something. I have to look that up. You know which one I'm talking about? That was
Yeah,
about
I know
20
what you're
years ago.
talking about.
Yeah.
I can't remember offhand exactly, but I've heard the story many times. But that yeah, it's fairly common with a lot of gangs down there, kidnapping Americans for ritual sacrifice or murder for kidnapping. I know many cartels have mentioned about that. Let me finish the story or the rest of the story, and then we'll get to the big part of it. The reason why you and I both thought something was wrong, but we couldn't really put our finger on it. So let's see here. The Mexican National Civil Defense Agency confirmed that the National Guard, the Army, and the state police were conducting a search in the municipality of Bavispe on Monday night. U.S. Ambassador Christopher Landau said in a tweet in Spanish that the safety of our fellow citizens is our top priority. I'm closely following the situation in the mountains between Sonora and Chihuahua. Sonora Governor Claudio Pavlovich Arellano tweeted late Monday that as a mother, she was filled with deep pain by the cowardly acts in the mountains between Sonora and Chihuahua. I don't know what kind of monsters dare to hurt women and children, Pavlovich said. Lily Tellez, the senator for Sonora, said on Twitter that the massacre in Sonora could not go unpunished. It's not the first time the family has been targeted. Julian LeBron's sibling, Benjamin, founder of the crime-fighting group SOS Chihuahua, was killed in 2009 in the neighborhood Chihuahua after he fled protests over the kidnapping of their 6-year-old brother, according to AFP. The Mormons refused to pay the ransom, and the young LeBron was ultimately released. So at first, reading that, you're like, something's weird when I read that this morning. Then, of course, women killed in Mexican cartel murders had alleged ties to sex cult NXIVM. Now that makes a little bit more sense, does it, Epic?
Well, it does, because this is what we're going to get into a little later. It reeks of intelligence agency work. It really does, because these cults, we call them cults, right, are mind control experiments in many ways. It sure seems that way. This NXIVM one, surely, I mean, the more you look at it, it has all the symptoms of being an operation. And it would have got away. I mean, they would have got away with it for their 10 years probably if, Hollywood hadn't taken the turn it did with all the Me Too movement and all this stuff, right? I mean, really, if it wasn't for that, I don't know if it would not have been buried a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, with every disclosure, whether it's controlled or not, whether it's just them throwing it in our face at this point, just like the finder's release on the FBI vault documents, we really don't know. But we do know is usually there's not coincidences. And in this case, our intuition was right, Epic, that there was not a coincidence. The 9 women and children slaughtered in Mexico on Monday were part of a Mormon community with ties to the alleged sex cult NXIVM. The outpost Mormon community in Mexico is where underlings of NXIVM leader Keith Raniere recruited young women to work as nannies in an upstate New York compound run by the accused cult, suggesting at least in part that their jobs would get the girls away from the home region's drug violence, according to a man hired by Raniere to produce a documentary about the group. The 3 moms and 6 kids killed in Monday's violence. The northern town of Sonora are believed to be victims of drug cartel, with mistaken the group's caravan of 3 SUVs for rivals, Mexican authorities said Tuesday. The filmmaker working with Raniere at the time, Mark Vicente, told the online magazine Slate that the documentary ultimately became a recruiting video for NXIVM, which purported to be a self-help group but morphed into what the feds call the cult that sexually, physically, and emotionally abuses many female followers. The female included an interview with Julian LeBron, who identified herself as the cousin of one of the moms killed Monday, who's a leader of the Mexican Mormon community. LeBron's brother was killed by a local drug cartel in 2009, and the family defiantly refused to pay a ransom. The cartel eventually released the abducted man. Well, see, a lot of people don't know that the Bronfman family, good old Claire Bronfman, her being one of the people that helped funded NXIVM, the Bronfman family helped fund NXIVM allegedly, part of the cult as far as kidnapping girls and grooming them for Raniere. Well, the Bronfman family has very huge ties to the Council for National Policy. Edgar Bronfman, in of himself, who was a major Zionist, was a member of the Council for National Policy himself. Josh Reeves has talked about it many times. Many of the CNP members, too, are part of the powerful Mormon families. The Romneys, the Scalzons, these are all CNP members that were Mormons. So this doesn't surprise me at all in the slightest bit. You have NXIVM, that seems to be an offshoot sex cult run by the Council for National Policy. That seems to be at odds. It's very interesting, you get the disclosure of Epstein, which seems to be run by the Council on Foreign Relations group, or if you're looking at it from a Russian oligarch standpoint, run by Vladislav Doronин's group, the more globalist order. Then you have NXIVM, which actually seems to be run more of the Council for National Policy, more of the Abramovich, if you're looking at it from a Russia standpoint, part of the world order. So it's just 2 competing factions and 2 competing styles of disclosure. I mean, same with the Franklin scandal and the Finders that happened at the same time. Right, Epic?
No, that's right. And we were talking about this. I still haven't found the documentary I was trying to find for you, but there are some things going on with that where we're going to be talking about G-men, about the intelligence operations that were running on or throughout the country that knew about these things. I mean, and still do. I mean, they still do. And when it comes to South America and Mexico, there's just so many ties to all these organizations. They all go down there, right? So like when NXIVM got caught, they didn't vanish, they didn't go away. They're obviously still running south of the border, right? When the Children of God cult had to bail out from up here in North America, where'd they go? They went down to South America and Mexico. They're all over the world, but I mean that's like they have numerous colonies down there. So and then you look at these things like Jonestown, which was a CIA operation prior, training the mercenaries going to Angola prior to becoming Jonestown. We still had the loudspeakers set up from that operation, literally from the CIA. And it goes on and on. You look at all these people who went down there and fled after Operation Paperclip here, but didn't come to America, went over there, right? They fled to South America. So all these ex-Nazis, all these people working on the progenitors of MK Ultra mind control, essentially, where'd they go? They went to South America. So you have this incredible network, it seems, of all these. We call them cults, but they're not really cults. They look more and more like operations. They really do, where they're trying to train these people from birth, essentially. They get the people when they're older, but their kids get born into these cults, and then they teach them the way they want to go. They take the Christian principle of teach a child the way he should go, and he won't stray from it, and they take that and combine it with little monarch mind control. Next thing you know, you got this army of people that can plant anywhere. And it does seem like competing factions. It really does. And you have to wonder if that's what happened here, because it doesn't add up for the. I mean, it could have been a mistake. It could have been they thought this was another caravan of rival drug lords and stuff, right? But
it seems more like a hit if they leave some of the kids alive, you know what I mean? And their goal was to take out certain members that had connections to NXIVM. Take them out, don't worry about the rest.
Well, the story is the one kid, I heard that later this afternoon, the one kid walked 6 hours to go get help.
Yes.
Did you read that part? Yeah, so, I mean, okay, sure, it's possible, but again, you're going across, rough country with the woods and the mountains, supposedly, full of all these people that just ambush them. It seems unlikely that that kid would be able to wander that far, that long, and not get picked up. So they let him go. I mean, now they let him go because it was a mistake. I mean, that's possible. It's possible. It's all conjecture. But you start talking about the NXIVM connection, and we're starting to look at all these other factions that have these south of the border connections. You have to really wonder. So I'm hoping we find out more about it, but I think this might be all we hear.
I agree. This probably is all that we're going to hear. I will probably also mention earlier about connections to intelligence agencies and cults. I want to say that the Unification Church of Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who believed that he was Yeshua, that Jesus had failed through his death on the cross, and Moon believed that he was the Savior. And I will talk about him on our Men of Perdition stream coming up next. Or in the next day or two, hopefully when Jimmy feels better. But yeah, the KCIA, the Korean Central Intelligence Agency, they founded the Unification Church of Reverend Sun Myung Moon. And the Unification Church, of course, has ties to the Council for National Policy. I've discussed it at length on my different episodes I've done on the CNP, and Josh Reeves has talked about it as well. You also have the Children of God, like you mentioned earlier. Of course, there are connections to the CIA, too, with David Berg, and the connections of the Finders, who directly were working with the CIA with Marianne Petty. So, how many of these cults, how many of these offshoots of religions, how much of them are working? Scientology, Mormonism, they say Mormons make the best intelligence agents. And so, Mormonism is just a way of practicing Freemasonry during the 1800s when it was illegal to do or looked down upon because of the anti-Masonry party at that time to do so. There's degrees of Masonry. So, that's where we're at. I
wanted to point something out. When Romney was running for president, the last presidential debate that they had, he came on stage on the debate, and he had on his lapel, he had the square and compass. And it tripped me out. I pointed it out to my uncle at the time. I was like, you know what he's doing right there? You see what that is? He never saw it before. He didn't know what it was. I mean, he just assumed it was like a Shriner thing or something, right? But it's like, no, man, it's Freemasonry. And I thought that was pretty overt of him to pull that, because I mean, it's right. He had the little flag on the lapel everybody used to wear back then. Still do. A lot of congressmen and senators do. But he had that square and compass. So yeah, you're right. I mean, the Mormon, Smith, he originally was really into Masonry, and that he you look at all his books, he's a lot like Charles Taz Russell with Jehovah's Witnesses. Both of them were big.
Another CIA-backed religion by the World Order, Jehovah's Witnesses, by the way.
Did you ever get a chance to see the Moonies when they were probably not old enough, but when they were on TV and out and actually in public? You'd see them from time to time. In the 70s, obviously, I'm probably a little young at the time for you, but I remember seeing them, and they had big crowds. I mean, they had big crowds. Reverend Moon used to get like stadiums full of people.
Oh yeah, I mean the Finders did at least one party for the Moonies that we know of because of Toby Terrell book The Game Caller. They were also involved with the Unification Church. CMP's heavily involved in the Unification Church. Unification Church was also very much involved in the Iran-Contra affair through funding and money laundering for the Iran-Contra affair. So yeah, I mean, it never ends. Epic, did you happen to see that Project Veritas? Of course, James O'Keefe suffers from journalistic premature ejaculation because everything that he ever releases, for the most part, he's like, oh my God, it's the biggest thing in the world. I'll have to have protection. I'll have to have a dead man switch. And then it comes out and you're like, oh, that's it? Really? That's it? Did you happen to have a chance to look at it?
I saw it in my feed. I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Okay, so pretty much it was a disclosure from an ABC news anchor. I think her name was Amy Robach. Talked about how the ABC buried the Epstein allegations. That they had allegations on Prince Andrew, but the British royal family wasn't going to allow them to interview them anymore if they were aired the story on Epstein, and they had Bill Clinton. Like, it is something, don't get me wrong. When I'm talking about this, I'm not like saying it's nothing at all, But the thing is it wasn't as big as O'Keefe made it out to be. And another thing too is something that I want to bring up is that James O'Keefe is a member of the Council for National Policy, as well as he's been on frequent meetings with the CNP. Here is a picture of October 2019, which is very recently. We have no idea where this meeting was held because it's secretive of where it's held, who's attended except for what CNP puts out. Their speeches, only some of the selective speeches that are given during that time period, or what the press leaks as far as being able to determine whether or not. But yes, it's very interesting that if you scroll down to the very bottom of October 2018, you get a panel with Mr. James O'Keefe. So yeah, as much as you want to talk about Project Veritas bringing you the truth, remember they're always going to send you one side of the truth. And Rico A. says, yes, they're only pushing the Clinton side of Epstein. That is very much true. They will never disclose anything that makes conservatives look bad. Project Veritas, unless they're weak conservatives. I'm talking about as far as anybody that toes the CNP party line. Like, you're never going to see anything that comes out against Steve Scalise, for example. Because if you see, Steve Scalise is on the board of governors of the CNP now. Good old Steve Scalise. Board of Governors of the Council for National Policy now. A United States congressman. All right? And remember that baseball shooting? Rand Paul was there. Steve Scalise was who got supposedly shot. So
that's right.
again, Project Veritas, just like Judicial Watch, long-term high major Council for National Policy member Thomas Fitton, will never give us anything when it has to do with Republicans, but will only implicate Democrats and the Clintons. And that is the side of the coin that most people in this dichotomy, when it comes to the truther movement, don't understand. Okay? And look, I'm no Clinton apologist. I've had Presser on here to talk about Clinton's connections to Epstein. I know the Clintons are deep, deep, deep in many different crimes. You know, Mena, Arkansas, drug running, the Clinton body count, you know, everything as far as alleged pedophilia with Human Abedin and Anthony Weiner. I'm not, you know, Bill Clinton and Virginia Roberts and his own ties to Epstein. I'm not discounting any of that at all. Any of that at all. I'm just trying to tell you that if you think the Republicans are the good guys, as someone of myself as a Christian conservative, they're not. What you guys say about that, Epic?
Oh, definitely not. And I can remember, not it went on before I was old enough to really know, you know, but I remember in the 70s and 80s, and as a kid in the 70s, and then in the 80s, as you know, wise enough to perceive it all. So I went to church my whole life as a kid, you know, so I was always in these Presbyterian churches and Baptist churches and Assembly of God and all these things. And so I was well acquainted. You know, I went to a Christian school, right? I did the scriptures, and I started seeing all these people claiming to be Christians, and most of them claimed to be conservatives, especially when Reagan came into office. And you started seeing these people with the prosperity ministry. It's people like Jerry Saville and people like John Avanzini and all these people. And it ended up becoming big with Kenneth Copeland and all those guys too. But we talk about the CNP people. They had been around since before then, but they started doing these prayer breakfasts, right? It's all about these prayer breakfasts. And what it came out of, these were all terrible things. They were all like, next thing you know, we're invading South America. We're going down, you know, and sending people on these, you know, financing the Contras and stuff like that. So, no, there's when you talk about people who are, you know, false prophets and false Christ or whatever we call them. These are them. I mean, they are. They don't practice what they preach. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, and people think just because they have the title next to their name that they're conservative or Republican or say they're a Christian. You know, they say by your works you should know them, whether they be good or evil. By their fruits rather, and the fruits are all bad, right? So yeah, I saw that right away. And yeah, we all know that, you know, that both sides of the coin are bad. I mean, obviously Clintons are no good either, but somehow this image of them being this prayer breakfast people originally, because that's what they were. They came to always prayer breakfast. They keep this clean image that half of them, I mean, I won't say half, it's not literally half, but they keep getting caught in these homosexual sex scandals and these prostitute scandals and all these things that show you who they are. And then, of course, not counting the graft and the things with the financial system and things they've altered, messed with, and the wars they finance and fight for profit, right? Because they are the war hawks. They finance on, you know, they don't finance. They make money off the misery of others by, you know, we'll just have a war down here and profit madly from it. So that's who they are, and you can see that's who they are. But talking about these spooks and how the spooks tie to these people, that really is interesting, and I bet you there's a lot more to that with these original CNP people too. I mean, when you go back all the way to Pat Boone and Sharon Tate, of all people, right? There's that connection. It's there. He's the one who discovered her and brought her back from Italy, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting that Pat Boone was a member of the CMP since almost its inception, right? I mean, it's weird in quotation marks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like squeaky image, right? And that's what it is. It's projecting that image. But you look behind the image, and there's nothing good going on there. And it's sad to say that a lot of these other, like we talk about these pedophile scandals. Hey, that was the Franklin scandal, was a Republican scandal. That was going on with, you know, Lawrence King and in the Bush White House. So, yeah, but those ties, that's where we get back to the spooks, and we get back to the idea of these intelligence operations, because there's spies, we call them spies, but maybe we call them handlers, but they work for these intelligence agencies, whether it be the CIA, the FBI, or whoever, showing up all over the place with Children of God, showing up all over the place with the Franklin scandal, showing up on the Finders, right? I mean, they're all there. Why are they there? Everywhere you look, there's a group of 3 or 4 of these G-men or spooks, whatever we call them, but they're associated with usually the CIA, but sometimes the FBI, and other times it's foreign intelligence. And that's not a coincidence. And you find out that they operate from these weird places, like the finders, right? It was Tallahassee. We know. I was trying to show you there's some tie-ins to Omaha, Nebraska, and there's a lot of tie-ins to Omaha, Nebraska. Go back to the Franklin scandal, of course, in Boys Town and all that, which leads to Charlie Manson, ironically. But he was only there for a couple of days at Boys Town. But still, the fact that they all have these inconspicuous places to operate out of. You don't expect them to be in Tallahassee. You don't expect them to be operating out of Omaha. But you find there's this gang of 3 or 4 people that just happen to be operating out of there and show up all the time. They're very much like what we call the Men in Black now, because we're not talking about aliens, but they happen to deal with, some pretty shady things with pedophilia, male prostitution, and, blackmail. So maybe they should call them the Men in Blackmail.
100% so, Epic. I mean, as I've mentioned here on the stream, pedophilia knows no party lines. It does not. And pedophilia, child abuse, child trafficking, blackmail, brownstone operations, all that, it knows no party lines. It has no party allegiance. It knows nothing of the left-right paradigm, and it never ends. So, yeah, I mean, you can't sit here and be like, well, rah, go team, I'm a conservative, so Trump hasn't done anything wrong, or the Franklin scandal never happened, it was just a witch hunt, a satanic panic. You can't be a liberal either and say, well, the Clintons have never done anything wrong. Epstein, had no involvement with the Clintons. And so you got to realize that both sides are messed up. I mean, there's no winners, there's no our guys when it comes to the United States government. When the higher order you go up, the worse that it is. I'm not going to say that you might have a person here and there who works as like an aide for a congressman or someone who works as a lower run FBI agent or a lower run customs agent like Ramon J. Martinez, and that aren't good guys that sometimes try to do what's right, because there are some. They're just rare, and the intelligence agencies are so compartmentalized. Some of those agents think that they're doing good things when they're not. Not all of them. There's a lot of bad ones.
Well, that's the key, the compartmentalization. I mean, that's for us too, like the two sides of the same coin and being, divided against ourselves. It's all an agenda to keep us from seeing the big picture. And it never a third party or independent candidate or whatever ever rise in politics, because everybody's on their team now. It's become a team, but it's still, like I said, the same, two sides of the same coin. You got to ditch the coin.
Oh yeah, very much so. And just looking at some of the people, have you heard recently about the Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes war that's been going on right now?
This is new.
Okay, so Charlie Kirk, who is a part of Turning Point USA, which Turning Point USA is, my belief, is a Council for National Policy funded organization. Charlie Kirk has spoken many times to the Council for National Policy. They love him, their little darling boy. They love Charlie Kirk. So, Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes have been getting in an argument. There's been some people who have approached Charlie Kirk asking questions about the USS Liberty that Charlie Kirk, of course, cannot answer, that Israel attacked the USS Liberty because he is a major Zionist. So, it's just seemed to be this I'm going to mispronounce a Groyper movement going on. It actually seems to be a little bit genuine. Of course, we know the Tea Party was co-opted, even maybe started by the CNP, with Palin, Sarah Palin being a big part of the Council for National Policy, and John McCain speaking to the Council for National Policy before he was elected president. Like all presidents did. Even Donald John Trump spoke in 2016, but we don't know Trump's speech compared to the rest of them that we know. So, Kirk goes around and he's like, well, he tries to get Fuentes off, saying Fuentes is alt-right, in quotation marks, that he's a racist, that he's anti-Semitic, both him and Sebastian Gorka. Because you guys got to realize, the CNP, the Council for National Policy, it's weird. It's when you look at the dichotomy of who's in there, you'll have major Zionists. You'll have Charlie Kirk, You have Sebastian Gorka. You'll have
Paul Wolfowitz.
Wolfowitz, who was the guy who convinced Alex Jones that it was just the box cutters and that the Five Eyes, Bush and Cheney had nothing to do with 9/11. Oh, David Horowitz, Freedom Center, CMP member. And then Mossad had nothing to do with 9/11, or Russia had nothing to do with 9/11. It was just the box cutters in Saudi Arabia. That's what Alex Jones says now. So you have major Zionists like that, but you also have major, anti-Zionist part of the CMP too, like the Regnery family with William. Hold on, I want to make sure it's the right. There's so many Regnerys. William Regnery II. William Regnery II, of course, was the founder of the National Policy Institute with Richard B. Spencer. Of course, I don't like Richard B. Spencer personally because you can find the pictures of him with Laura Bush. I think he's a plant, very similar to Hal Turner. But David Duke post owing some taxes. But I just find it very interesting that you see these little wars going on. So right now Richard B. Spencer has a war with Milo. Milo releases this audio of Spencer, very unbecoming audio of him yelling about the events of Charlottesville. And because of that, they're trying, to make Spencer... I mean, Spencer's pretty much not really relevant anyway. And he's not the voice of any true alt-right, in my opinion. But they're put him in the limelight. So it seems to be that it's, the Mercers, who back a lot of people like Ollie Alexander, Milo, Bannon, they're going to war, and the Mercers are big Zionists. They're going to war with the whole Spencer, Regnery, Fuentes faction because Henry Regnery, which was William Regnery's father, he started America First at the very beginning, back in the 30s. So you see these parallels. Even within the CMP, there's wars. Or are they wars and they just make strange bedfellows? The Zionists make strange bedfellows with the anti-Zionists. Or the Jews make strange bedfellows with the white nationalists. You could look at it that way. What do you think about that, Epic?
Yeah, I go back to Wolfowitz being he was an intern for I think it was an Alabama senator. I can't remember his name. You probably know. And then during the 6 Day War, he's the guy they believe who leaked information, intelligence, to Israel from that office. And then when Johnson got the information this was going on and the 6 Day War was going the way it was, and they went to go sink the Israelis went to go sink the Liberty. He's been on the record as people who witnessed it that ship is to be sunk. Nobody's supposed to escape. The whole thing, that was a huge scandal that somehow got buried. And if that kind of thing could get buried, and Wolfowitz can go on to be a neocon in the Bush administration and run the World Bank, until he gave his girlfriend $2 million, I think it was, it was a job, caused a scandal. They were operating with impunity for a long time. It's just having that. I think what they call it back in the Olympic days used to give you like a white stone or something. I think it was right. If you won, you just showed that and go anywhere. It's like having the key to the city, and these people seem to have that. I don't know if they still have it like they used to. But those guys, all these guys we're talking about were implicated a long time ago. It's not like this is new. And all these guys get co-opted, Like, look what happened to Rand Paul. What happened to that dude? His dad he seemed cool, right? All of a sudden, this guy is just a total, I don't know what he is. He's a cartoon now, Rand Paul. So what happened to these people? Well, they got co-opted. They got told what to do. They have to get with the program. And the program is more complex, I think, than we think. I mean, I don't say we probably do think it's pretty complex because they are taking people with psychographics and like Cambridge Analytical. We're talking about what's his face a minute ago, old Johnny Cash wearing guy, right? About how he. Sorry, I'm brain fart today, but he hired Cambridge Analytica to do the research for the election. Here's an English.
You talking about Robert Mercer? Mercer was he didn't hire Cambridge Analytica, but he was the founder of Cambridge Analytica. Mercer was.
No, the guy we're just talking about who just started the big podcast, right? used to run in the campaign. Sorry, can't think of his name
Stephen
right
K.
now.
Bannon.
Yes, Mr. Bannon. Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
Stephen K. Bannon was a former vice president of Cambridge Analytica. Mercer's were the investors, founders of
Right.
Cambridge.
And so here's this English company doing all the work, sending out the troll bots here in America, and that's espionage. It's completely espionage. It's weaponized psychographics. And so that when they do that, I mean, it shows you that America has gone live in the test bed of testing things with humanity now. They made it legal to do psyops in America in 2012, right? So they're taking advantage of it. So ever since, you can't trust anything you see on the news or internet or anything. You have to look for yourself. You have to do some research, and they're making it increasingly hard to do so.
Yeah, very much so. I agree with Mr. Robert Parker in the chat that Spencer is jealous of Fuentes. I definitely agree. Septus, you asked proof that Spencer has ties to the CIA. All I can say is William Regnery II is still part of the Council for National Policy. You'll see him signed a lot of conservative action letters and a lot of CMP action letters to the president. Of course, again, Richard Spencer is a member of the National Policy Institute. The National Policy Institute was founded by William Regnery II. And so CIA ties, they're probably there, but I can tell you that the CMP ties are definitely there. So up here I have on the screen, all of the presidential candidates had to give a speech, like a trial run, before the CMP gave them their blessing to be the presidential candidate for running for the United States. So we have Benjamin Carson, Jim Gilmore, Lindsey Graham, Rand Paul. Wait, I thought Rand Paul was our guy. I thought he was a libertarian. I covered his speech in a thing I did for Ron Paul and Rand Paul. I'll link it in the show notes. Go listen to that speech and you tell me Rand Paul's our guy. You tell me the Pauls are our guy, okay? Because they're not. Ron Paul's a Mason. All right, he's a Mason. His wife's Order of the Eastern Star. They ain't our guys. Rick Santorum. And of course, Donald Trump did. But then again, we don't have Trump's speech. God, I wish we had Trump's speech epic. As telling as that would be. Because when you listen to Rand Paul's speech, he isn't like, I've been here before, this is my first time, it's good meeting you. He's getting down on his knees and filleting Morton Blackwell, that he is the raiser up of all the young conservatives. And Morton Blackwell's been a major member of the Council for National Policy and president of the CMP too as well. So Rand Paul is as comfortable with the CMP as you would be uncomfortable with any of your close family members. Like, it's that close. And there's a documentary that you mentioned earlier that I think you're referencing to called The Family on Netflix. Yes, a lot of it's liberal propaganda, but you got to be able to see through the bias. They talk about the doctrine of election, the doctrine of double predestination, and that it doesn't really matter what someone who's ordained by God, many of these CMPers, it doesn't really matter, like Lindsey Graham, it doesn't really matter what Lindsey Graham does. Because he's ordained by God, any of these people, just like Lawrence E. King, and we found out George H.W. Bush and Ronald Wilson Reagan. Of course, the CMP. Ronald Wilson Reagan spoke to the CMP while he was president, got a military briefing, or not a military, an intelligence briefing from the CMP about the Iran-Contra affair while he was president. He was allegedly molesting call boys in part of Franklin and molesting, allegedly kids from the Franklin scandal that were being trafficked. And so the CMP looks at Reagan as a god. They look at Reagan as being, ordained by God, so therefore he can do whatever he wants as president or just as a person. And so if he wants to go rape a kid, it's almost Sabbateanism in a way, Because he's ordained, it doesn't matter what he does. He's sinless. And that is not a tenet of Christianity.
No, not at all. And like I said, I graduated from a Christian high school, so a private school. So I was actually in high school when this stuff was really getting going, where they had all these prayer breakfasts, the things that the family in Netflix is talking about. They had those evangelists come to our, because the church ran the school, right? So it was, if you know who John Avanzini is, I went to that guy's school. So he's ran the RBN network, was a big feature there for a long time. And he's totally name it and claim it prosperity ministry guy. But all these guys came through, and yeah, they're not Christians. I'm telling you. I mean, they may preach the word, but they're not preaching it as it is. They're not telling you if you have two coats, give one to your brother has none. They're saying God doesn't want you to be poor. If you want that Cadillac, you're a child of the kingdom. He's going to give it to you, which is completely false doctrine, of course, right? But yeah, so these are the same people. They're all about power and consolidating power. And we're talking about the people who are behind the scenes, the puppet masters now in right-wing politics. That's who they are. Right. So the liberals have their same kind of thing, a different way. It's not guys in suits coming out there and doing a prayer breakfast. It's something different, but still, I think the Argyle sock wearing college professors had gone by the wayside, but they got their own mechanisms now. But they all go back to spooks. They all do. It just really looks like it's it was an operation at that time too. Now you go back and look at things that started like the UFO movement. Back in the 50s, we had guys like George Adamski saying he was going to Venus, and Venus became this big waypoint that we're going to talk about maybe these people later in a different show, Benjamin Krim and those guys, but they all knew each other. And the Men in Black started with Jessup and Gray Barker, and well, Jessup had the Philadelphia experiment, Gray Barker had the Men in Black, and Gray Barker was a famous notorious hoaxer. But he had this naval intelligence tie-in where they read his book from Carlos Allende, who wrote in the margins about the Philadelphia experiment. First he was writing Gray Barker, and then later on, Jessup. And later on, that's when naval intelligence came in and wanted to look at his writings and copied the book. Well, doesn't that sound like an intelligence operation itself? I mean, it actually put something in the public view. And this idea of people from Venus and UFOs and started a whole, in a way, a fad, but it affected the psyche of a country. And these people started religions. All these people started religions. Adamski started a religion. We know Krem did. And the Theosophists took off with that, and then the Unitarian Church adopted that. What's it called? The Etheric Church is another one. All these things, UFO cults basically, which led up to our Hell Bob guys, right? They're in outside of San Diego. So yeah, Heaven's Gate. So these cults seem to have something in common. They seem to go back to what looks like a psyop.
Oh, very much so. Septus asked in the chat, why aren't we upset about, the numerous violations of the Constitution that happened at Charlottesville, or who doesn't want Antifa, who isn't enraged by the deep state letting them rule the streets and take our freedoms. Yeah, I mean, I don't support Antifa. I know you don't, Epic. I mean, just because we're discussing the conservative side of things.
Nobody. I don't know anybody. Do you know anybody? I've
No,
never heard
no,
anybody.
I don't have any. No, I don't have any friends that are Antifa members or support Antifa. I mean, I can't.
But I don't know anybody who does. I mean, so here they are wearing black masks, running around, supposedly financed by George Soros or something. But you know what? I can't find any evidence that stuff's true. All I see is guys in black masks and black outfits running around and kicking cars and throwing fire bombs.
I do think they are paid operatives. You have them on both sides.
They're paid operatives. No, yeah, certainly. But we did some research. I don't know if you were with us on that one, about the idea that you have these actual. You can. Man, I have my links up. I could bring them up. There's these companies. There's several in England. There's several here that do complete like drills. Where they give you real crisis actors. I mean, that they're companies that hire out the whole drill. So if you want to have a mass shooting or a big bomb go off in the airport or whatever, they come out and you hire them to do it. And it's not supposedly real, but in their little bio, I want to say in the margins, when you read what else they can do, they talk about being able to take any one of these drills live. Yeah, so that's telling you right there that there are thugs for hire essentially that'll run these operations. And when you look into them, I mean, they're above board as far as like they exist. You can go to their website, you can go try to hire them. Wow, how's that even legal, right? Because they tell you right there, it's believable. Everything they do is believable. So you're basically pulling one over on the people. If they're doing a subway robbery or something, or a fake shooting, let's say, yeah, they don't tell the people in the subway that they're doing this. You just hire them to go do it. Let me see if I can find a link for them. Yeah, I don't know if you looked into that, John. It's pretty
No,
interesting.
I have. Epic. Some of the people in Antifa are obviously paid operatives. Some of the people aren't. Some of them people are social justice warriors that are consumed
I
for
don't know if you're muted
change.
there. I'm going to go try to look this up.
Oh no, yeah, because sorry, I had you muted, but I wasn't muted on the thing. I was saying, yeah, some of the Antifa members are of course paid. They're paid off, paid actors. Some people by George Soros. Like Alex Jones makes George Soros out to be the boogeyman behind every problem. Not saying that I'm excusing Soros at all. I'm not at all in the slightest bit. All right. But he has he's not the end all be all boogeyman. All right. There are many other power players, some possibly even higher than George Soros. So, Soros does have some connections to Antifa. As far as the funding is concerned, I do believe that. But he's not the only one. And again, some people in Antifa are paid operatives. Some people in Antifa are genuine SJWs. They're definitely misguided if they're genuine SJWs. Their real issue should be with the powers that be, not just people walking down the street. But
Did you look into this Crisis Cast? That's one of the ones I was thinking of. Crisis Cast is one of them. You can just type it in. It's probably faster than me trying to send it to you in VR. But if you go crisiscast.com, these are the people that go pay these people, $40 to go, throw a firebomb or whatever.
yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I'm going to bring up their website.
Yeah, if you can maybe show it on the YouTube channel or something. I don't know.
Problem reaction solution, huh?
Absolutely. And it's not. This is no one. I had on my phone. I have like 5 of these all linked, but I'm in VR right now, so I can't get to them.
But yeah, so someone also said in the chat, I want to bring it up. Anonymous user said Reagan was genuine but a narcissist. They had to shoot him because he tried to be his own man once he figured out what was going on. I disagree with that. I think the shooting was a ritual. He was supposed to die but didn't. Definitely anonymous user. Look into the Franklin scandal. Read the book, The Confessions of a DC Madam by Henry Vincent. Read the article that I put up here, Homosexual Prostitution Inquiry and Stairs VIPs with Reagan and Bush. Callboys took midnight tour of the White House. As well as Reagan was the darling of the Council for National Policy even during, since its inception in 1981. Reagan was not our guy. I can actually argue that more than likely almost none of the presidents were. S90 mentions today Nick Fuentes was saying Chicago Antifa doxed a ton of right-wingers, but at the bottom it said not possible without Turning Point USA. Yeah, it's just CNP inner fighting. That's all it is. Just CNP inner fighting. And you see that with a lot. You see that with all of this is just inner groups. I brought up right here David Horowitz giving remarks to a CNP meeting in 2017. Founder and CEO of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Major Zionist convinced Alex Jones that it was just Saudi Arabia and just the Bucks Cotters. So, I mean, that's where we're at. When you look at all these people, Dennis Prager, and how many council members are part of Trump's cabinet, and I got the documents, or Scott Pruitt, and I'll be doing a presentation on the CNP that I'd given at the Shoot the Moon conference in New York City soon. But yeah, I mean, all of these things when it comes, like you mentioned, crisis management, Christcasts, all of it. It's just spook operatives run by spooks, spooks being involved, going to darks. I mean, it never ends, does it?
No, it doesn't. But normalcy bias. I call it normalcy bias. You try to tell people, you know how it is. You try to tell somebody, your friend or whatever, hey, there's really these places that do this. No, that can't be. You're just, being a conspiracy theorist. Like, no, it's right there. Go look it up. You can go hire them if you want to, right? Or you tell them about Cambridge Analytica and like, no, they didn't have all those. They didn't have that kind of, 5,000 data points on a person. Well, yeah, they did. And that's just a very good documentary that The Great Hack on Netflix also, right? That talks about that. Yeah, and Steve Bannon being involved with that.
Yeah, very
It's
much.
all there.
That's a basic movie I'd recommend. There's a podcast I've done on this channel with Neil Sanders, looking at his work about Cambridge Analytica. Now, granted, Neil is very left wing, but that does not mean that he's not correct in his research about Cambridge Analytica, the CMP, and the Heritage Foundation. Anonymous user says Reagan was a useful idiot, narcissist. He was an actor in Hollywood, but he was also genuinely anti-communist. You only need to shoot people not following the plan. That is not true. You could shoot people who, for some sort of ritual, like Michael Joseph's the killing of JFK being the killing of the king ritual to usher in the new world order. You don't necessarily have to shoot some people not following the plan. And also, again, communism and fascism are both very strongly about the Hegelian dialectic. Look into the World Anti-Communist League, its connections to the Council for National Policy, its connections to the Iran-Contra affair, its connections to the Unification Church. I'm not saying that I'm for communism, I'm not in the slightest bit, just like I'm not for total fascism either. But, just because someone's anti-communist, like Roy Cohn, doesn't make them our guy.
Not at all. No. And that's the thing. That's like right now, there's so much going on. There's so much corruption here in America, right here, right now, on both sides. Just look at it. It's the people who I couldn't believe what I heard today. They're talking about how this town wouldn't let the library buy the New York Times. You hear about that? They wouldn't let
No.
They had a city council meeting, and they're appropriating funds for the library. In the library, New York Times is a newspaper. You want to have it in the library, and they denied them because we believe Trump. They said, well, no, no, don't. I mean, the whole thing is that whole separation of people, believe Fox News for some reason, which is total nonsense, or believe the other side, MSNBC, whatever it is, you need to pay attention and look up everything for yourself. But the fact that people are so divided and don't take information from a source that they aren't comfortable getting it from, rather, they're bought in. And that's corruption. That's complete corruption. Like, so if you listen to what's going on with this whole Trump scandal, he's guilty as all hell. Of course he was bribing those people. Of course,
Well, he's
Giuliani was running
guilty
that whole
not
thing.
from the Russian narrative that the liberals try to make it out to be, or the deep state, or that CFR tries to make it out to be.
No, he's being a mob boss, basically. He's running around with that secret operation with Giuliani, getting his stuff he wanted. Yeah, that's what he's guilty of.
Yeah,
and enriching
being
himself.
involved with the Russian oligarchs, many of them being Ashkenazi Jewish, many of them being Mountain Jews. But yeah, being in bed with the powerful Russian oligarchs, both sides are, both the Clintons and Trump both are. That's what makes the thing so funny. They're just competing factions.
Right. Yeah, they're both guilty. That's what I'm saying. It's like if you just look at it, obviously, there's corruption to go around for everybody, and the fact that there's nobody just standing up and saying enough is the problem. I mean, it doesn't matter if you call yourself a conservative, liberal, or whatever. No, enough's enough. The truth's the truth, regardless. I mean, that's the whole point. Don't let these guys get away with it. We need another option, or at least have to do it with what we have, rather than at least make them accountable, right? So, yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive, no doubt. But I think that what's going to happen, this Cambridge Analytica kind of style of weaponized psychographics, you start combining it with AI and with the things.
Deep fakes.
Yeah, deep fakes and all this. Yeah, deep fakes are for audio too. They can mimic your voice now accurately, from just a single sample. So anybody can mimic your voice as well. And next thing you know, how that war on the analog world is going to be complete. Nothing's real anymore. And that world of alternative facts is just whatever makes you comfortable. And that is a war on truth, which is exactly what the Bible talks about, right? That they shall believe a lie. So.
Well, I mean, as good researchers, if you're looking at it from a secular view, you're supposed to be able to read information from all sources and separate what is true and what is false. Or if you're looking from a Christian perspective, from Matthew 3:12, you're supposed to separate the wheat from the chaff. So, you read information. I mean, I even listen to Jordan Sather, disciple of Q, just to see what the Q group is talking about.
You
I
have
don't
to.
agree with Jordan
Yeah.
Sather, a cue in the slightest bit, 99% of the time. But it doesn't mean that every now and then he gets something right. Just like Alex Jones. Again, it's not what Alex Jones tells you most of the time. It's what Alex Jones does not tell you.
Well, what's old Alex up to these days? I haven't seen him in a while. I try to
Sepsis,
keep
that's
up
not
with these
necessarily
guys.
one last thing. That's not necessarily true. Josh Reeves is not connected to Antifa at all. There's a lot of information about the Council for National Policy that is not sourced from anybody who's Antifa connected. That's disinformation. I myself, I'm a Christian conservative. I'm looking at it as in they act like they're true Christians, but they're not. It's almost like a Christian synagogue of Satan. I guess you could say a church of Satan at that point. They act as a theocracy, but they're really not. But you asked what Alex Jones is doing. I don't know. He's going to that Flat Earth convention.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's going to Flat Earth convention in Dallas with Owen Benjamin. When is that? Let me bring that up. What do you got to think about that? Oh, he did a video about Antarctica too. Did you see that?
No, like I said, I haven't watched him. I never really did watch him. Watch some of his videos when he put videos out, right? But I watch him once in a while, and then click on a clip rather to try to catch up with what's going on in the world with him, But no, the Antarctica thing. I mean, Antarctica is a heck of a subject, but everything seemed to peak in 2016. You haven't really heard much since, really.
He's going to this Flat Earth International Conference in Dallas. Alex Jones is going to be there. I was trying to bring up people that were going to be there. They want anywhere between $50 to $850 for a ticket. Good God.
Go to Antarctica with that.
yeah. You can. I'm looking at the conference right now. Let's see who's going to be there. I'm just curious. Of course, I myself am a Bala. I believe in the globe Earth. But let's see here. Speakers. You have Rob Skiba. Jason Lingram, which I know Jason. He's not going to be speaking about Flat Earth stuff, though. Interesting. Owen Benjamin's supposed to be there, and Alex Jones is supposed to be there. Alex Jones is supposed to be there to actually cover it. I find that very interesting. That he's going to take the time to cover a Flat Earth conference. But, I mean, it's Alex Jones. What do you expect at this point, huh?
I think the whole flat Earth thing's pretty interesting that it took off the way that it did, and it co-opted some people who were doing a lot of other serious research. I mean, Rob Skiba was doing a lot on the Genesis 6 stuff, which was really where I think you should pursue. I mean, that's the days of Noah, right? That's a lot more important, I think, than the flat Earth thing, because it even if somehow it was true, does it really affect anything? Other than the fact that it's like the ultimate.
Well, they say if the Earth is flat, then we've been lied about everything. It's the same with Tartaria. It's almost
it just came out of nowhere, didn't it? Tartaria. It's like, although we had tartar sauce all this time, so there's that.
I'm not saying Tartaria isn't real, and there's connections to the kingdom of Tartar and the Mountain Jews, but.
No, I'm with you. That's what I was saying. Is that the fact that I remember for months straight. I mean, every time I click on YouTube, I never, looked up Tartaria or had any interest in. Every other video was a Tartaria video. It's like they really pushed that. I mean, that was really pushed by the algorithm for some reason. Just like Flat Earth was. Flat Earth, was pushed by Google. It wasn't. Now it isn't, but back then it was. I mean, this has all the markings of the psyop, and it worked, obviously. Seems to. But yeah, we talk about the Mountain Jews. That's them, right? That's the Mountain Jews. That's the area they come from. So that's true. That's the Kabbalistic Jews that carry that tradition on. That's the mystics.
Yes, you talk about the Mountain Jews, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, they follow the Kabbalah. They reject the Talmud. They're very different than your standard Chabad Lubavitch. So yeah, I mean, there are differences. One venerates more of the Kabbalah, and the other venerates more of the Talmud. Now, I'm not a fan as far as the beliefs of the Talmud or the Kabbalah, but it's just interesting the differences between the two. And yeah, actually, there's one Mountain Jew myth by a Mountain Jew rabbi I forgot his name, that said that there was like an invader who came and he held up the Talmud to block a sword attack, and they cut through the Talmud with the sword because he just he didn't care about the Talmud. He's like, here, cut through this. If it protects my life, it protects my life. And it protected him. Jake Corden asked about what about mud flood theory. That's the same with Tartaria. There's just not enough evidence to sway me on that.
It's interesting, but there's so much evidence for other big catastrophes that happened, that coincide with big deposits of debris and from a massive flood, glaciers breaking, that kind of thing. So like you say, there's not enough. I mean, for you to believe that one, and it's interesting, don't get me wrong, you'd almost have to believe that theory about the missing couple hundred years, right? So which is it, a couple hundred? I forget how many years it is. It's quite a ways. It's a significant number of years that was hidden, because that would accommodate for that missing time, because it's not in history books.
Yes, and Septa 7, if you could send me any information on Russ Baker, the author of Family of Secrets. I can't really find anything directly that he's connected to Antifa, but I'd love to see it. But just because he wrote about the crimes of George H.W. Bush doesn't necessarily, even if he has connections to Antifa, doesn't mean that he's wrong about the problems of George H.W. Bush. So, you gotta look through the lens. You can have the most liberal person in the world tell you the truth, just like you can have the most conservative person tell you the truth, too, as well. And a person will just dismiss it because of their ideology, depending on what ideology they are. You have to weigh the evidence and whether it's true or not. You do have to weigh who's telling you. I'm not saying that at all. But you also can't discount just because this person tells you don't agree with them. Because in doing so, you may not ever find the truth. And many people do that. It's very sad. Very, very sad.
No, that's true. I mean, it's hard, people get pigeonholed. That's the whole idea, this compartmentalization we talked about earlier. I mean, it's deliberate. If you keep people compartmentalized, you keep them pigeonholed into choosing an identity that they don't want to choose, basically. Then you're divided and you're not seeing the whole picture. And that's classic intelligence operation. It really is. And propaganda, right? It's classic propaganda, really.
Yeah, and they do that a lot. They do that to conquer and divide the so-called truth movement, what I like to call the truth or industrial complex. Because many people are either bought out by either the CFR or the CMP, depending on their political leaning, or they're just too uncomfortable to start talking about certain things because of their audience members. They're afraid that if they tell the truth that they've discovered, or if they stick to their beliefs, that they'll be ostracized from their audience. That's why many people still support Trump, even though they don't really support him. It's kind of sad how they've been stuck with that.
They just want to own the libs, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that instead of actually getting the truth out there, Trump's winning the culture war. I mean, it's important, but is it the most important thing when we're in war with Iran, should I say? World War III is occurring, and that may not happen. Like they've been saying we're going to be in a war with Iran since the Iran hostage crisis, but it does seem more and more that the chips are going on the table.
Well, they cleared the zone. They made it possible for the overland route. So you combine that with their submarines and things that they're making. They're a formidable force. I mean, they're not America. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that you could make a coalition based with other nuclear powers. They don't have the nukes, but they can make a coalition with those who do. Pakistan being the most frightening one because they do have them. And they have a pretty shaky government there right now that we're not really helping out, right? So they don't owe us any favors. And you look what happened with Syria. They don't really trust us. They never did really trust us. They were obviously bin Laden was living there, but we kind of knew that the whole time, I'm sure. If he was even alive at that time, I have my doubts about that. Just like this whole, how many times did this guy die? Right, Baghdadi. It's his fourth or fifth time he's died now.
Yeah.
Gets buried at sea.
Or just like I showed
like
that tweet from Pompeo that Cyrus the Great, the Mountain Jews want Iran back. Make Iran Persia again. So.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to that. Tying a little bit of biblical scripture there, right? That whole Prince of Persia. I mean, that's actual scripture where the angel gets held up talking to Daniel, fighting the prince of Persia, right? So it's principalities and powers, right? So that's interesting to me that this ancient, Persia is making a comeback.
Or Epic. What about Pompeo saying the founding fathers venerated Cyrus the Great? Very interesting. I never came across that in any textbook. Or any conspiracy theorist never told me that either, didn't they? Or the Cyrus the Great's cylinder being in the United Nations. So, but 90% of the truth movement doesn't talk about the Mountain Jews, or doesn't even, majority of them probably don't know, but a lot of people are co-opted and would never talk about them. Never talk about make Persia great again. Gotta rescue those Iranian people, Yeah,
the Cathars, right? So
now. Everybody knows that the Khazars are the Ashkenazi Jews, and that there's no way in the world that the Mountain Jews actually may be possibly of Khazarian descent, or they are. There's a paper I'm going to read when I get to really covering the Mountain Jews. It talks about the origins, and it's weird. You talk about Tartary, you talk about Silk Road. They have command of Silk Road. They're a warrior tribe. You talk about the Book of Esther and their ancient origin of the Persians. It's very hard to nail down exactly where they came from and really truly who they are. But one thing that does seem to be apparent is they have the highest Rh negative blood in the world, and a majority of the Mountain Jews live in Israel, where a majority of the Ashkenazi Jews live in the United States and Europe.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that about the Rh negative before. Yeah, because when they did the siege on Jerusalem, I mean, for all practical purposes, and the Romans did the 70 A.D. siege on Jerusalem, that was the end of Judaism. I mean, for all practical purposes, they had them all locked up in that that city, and other than what Josephus managed to salvage out there and take to Rome, all the there's no Sadducees or Pharisees left at that point, basically. So it's whoever fled, right? And so we know that the Kabbalistic Jews fled out into Central Europe, and that's where and they brought with them the Babylonian magic, right? That's where that comes from.
Now, Epic, again, the scenes that fled, they also have ties to possibly being the modern Mountain Jews as well. So there you go, just confirming more of my research. You're jumping ahead of the gun. I haven't gotten there yet.
Right. That's a horrific story, the Josephus story. We should go over that sometime.
Now, yes, you and I need to do a stream about why Joseph Atwill's a liar.
Yeah, totally. I'm sorry, Joseph, but I don't buy your stuff. No. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I think it's pretty bad. And when you look at the actual account, you're talking about the guy. I mean, he was a Russian. I mean, sorry, not Russian. Forgive me there. A Roman agent. I mean, at that point, Josephus is an operative of Rome, right? So whatever he takes out with him is, it's basically treasure. It's what do you call it? Raid another country, basically at that point. Even though he was Jewish, right? But I don't know. I mean, what he brought with him became the basis. You're controlling the information, basically. You combine that with the Library at Alexandria being burned and all these other things that Rome's involved with. You're talking about the consolidation of information, and that's what happened. All those documents, they didn't all get burned. I'm sure they're all sitting in the Vatican Library underground somewhere, but not all of them, maybe, but a lot of them. And just like a lot of these other scriptures and the original sacred text, if it wasn't for finding the Nag Hammadi text and the the 1948 and the Dead Sea Scroll stuff, then we wouldn't have a lot of this stuff. That documents these other whole books that were missing because the Council of Nicaea got rid of them. Book of Enoch being the prime one. Really interesting stuff. So
yeah,
and then what we see in the Talmud.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. The Book of Enoch, the Apocalypse of Peter, they're both strong evidence that they were in early. The Book of Enoch was originally possibly considered a holy book by the Jews. The Apocalypse of Peter were in some of the early put together of the the New Testament. I forgot the exact name for there was many different versions of the New Testament before it became what we have, as far as the Catholic Church, and then of course the Protestant Church with the 66 books. But even I'm getting tired. The Roman emperor that converted to Christianity, he was an evil man who was looking for Constantine, who's a pagan to the day he died, in my opinion.
Killed his mom.
He even, Council of Nicaea even said that that the Apocalypse of Peter was a genuine book. But that being said, though, I still have to caution about Gnosticism as me falling into that trap very early on in my conspiracy research, and becoming a Gnostic, and then leaving Gnosticism once I found out that it's very much a heresy, is that the Rockefellers funded it. They funded it. They funded the expansion. They funded it being released into the public. They funded Elaine Pagel. She won a Rockefeller Award. The elite wants the false doctrine out there, so that, and I'm not saying the Vatican ain't, I'm not saying the Vatican hasn't committed any crimes. Lord knows it has. And you can say there's degrees of corruption of the tree. There is a 1,000-year reign of Christ's church. The early church fathers, till you get to now where the tree is completely dead with the Jesuit Pope. You can even say it even started, the death was, the tree was dead. The Catholic Church was dead at the Second Vatican completely. But it wasn't always corrupted from the very beginning. It's stages of corruption to that tree till it's dead, and I believe it's dead now. But yeah, so those Gospels came out of Nag Hammadi, more the Gnostic texts. There's very strong evidence that was funded by the World Order, put out by the World Order, to almost push, a form of Gnosticism, love and light, to almost push a form of Christian theosophy out upon the world, to take away from true Christianity, in my opinion.
Yeah, you got this interesting, the schism, the Great Schism, where you got the Eastern Orthodox Church, and they have their stuff. You have the Coptic Church, of course, that formed in Egypt. It has these other texts, which has some of the Gnostic texts in it as well. And then the Gnostic texts are Nag Hammadi, and then the ones they found in the Qumran cave. What's interesting about that is they have more scrolls of Isaiah and Enoch than anything else, and they hid that for a long time. The Israeli government did.
Yeah, the true information they hid. The other stuff they let out, funded by the Rockefellers. Very interesting, huh?
Yeah, the World Heritage Foundation, right? So that goes back with the Rockefellers and with the what's his name, Rhodes, Cecil Rhodes, those guys, which all talk about secret society. I mean, they're a very overt secret society, but they're a group that has a lot of control.
Except to ask if it's historical Gnosticism or revisionist Gnosticism. I think it's both. The Essenes were the mountain Jews. They were the practices of the Kabbalah. Yeshua was not Essene. He came from no subsect of any type of the Jewish division. Sadducees, Pharisees, or the Essenes. He was separate from all of those. And again, anybody who ever says that Yeshua was an Essene, that primarily comes from modern day Gnosticism and theosophy. Yeah. And I completely reject that now once I figured out. And also, it was Michael Joseph that helped me through that. Even though Michael Joseph is a Catholic, I still respect greatly his work, even though he does a little bit too much of a Jesuit apologist, by my belief. But he was the one that got me to see that it was bullcrap. And once I realized that, that all these people were involved, and I was like, wow. And once I actually went back and really started reading the New Testament again, then I finally, in the early church fathers, that I finally realized that it was a heresy.
Yeah, you got me thinking about the Jesuits. I mean, there's so many things about the Jesuits. You could do all kinds of shows on them, but keeping with the theme, it kind of went off and started a little bit. That's the origins of an intelligence service. That's it. That the Jesuits were the first real intelligence service. They did all the assassinations. They don't claim that they did, but they did, and gathered all the. They spied. They gathered.
Now, Jan Irving says that they learned all that from the Hashashins.
Is that so?
Yeah. It's all Islam. It's never the Vatican, or and there's no Jewish influence or anything like that. It's to Jan Irving. It's just the Muslims.
Yeah. Well, there's that 400-year time span in between. Unfortunately,
I'm just telling you, that's how Jan Irving
Yeah.
looks at everything. Of
Well,
course,
I'm not slamming Islam. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's got a lot of good things in there, and I like some of their texts for sure. But and they do consider Christ a prophet. I mean, that's so there's some similarity, at least in that sense. But when they have Imam Mahdi appearing, he's going to appear with Christ. So I mean, that's part of
yeah,
their
but
prophecy.
I do believe Islam, just like Judaism, is apostate. Even though they are technically all, some people would argue they are not. They are Abrahamical religions. And I do have Muslim friends. Two of them are a very, very close personal friend of mine. But I do believe that Islam is apostate, and so does Judaism. And just talk at length of Judaism being apostate in the New Testament. Until the very end, there will be some Jews that accept Christ. But so it has to be the deliverance of the Jewish people in Revelation. But yeah, you're right about Jesuits. I mean, Marion Petty was Georgetown University. He was Jesuit trained, the head of the finders. And you'll see that a lot. Many intelligence services are Jesuit trained, just like many intelligence services are Mormons.
Most of them are, yeah. And in fact, the true Bavarian Illuminati, right? That's Jesuit. That's Adam Weishaupt was a Jesuit. So there you go.
Yeah, and then of course the Knight of Malta have very strong. The Knights Hospitalier have very strong ties to the Council for National Policy and Iran Contra. So, many roads lead to Vatican City.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely. And there's so much tied into that the symbolism that they use. It's right there in plain sight, just like the Masonic symbols. They're right there, but nobody pays attention to them. So because they don't know what they are, and it's pervasive. It's everywhere. Now people are starting to know. It's like they make fun of it in a way now, but hey, that stuff had power. It really worked. I mean, the first image ever set on a TV screen was a Maltese cross. So why would they do that, right? There's a reason. They're trying to communicate to the other side.
And so, Jay, you are right. We did get some many important things from Arabic cultures. I'm not trying to.
Oh, algebra, yeah.
Yeah, math. I'm not trying to denigrate them at all. Just like Chinese cultures brought a lot of things to the world too as well. Many of those ancient cultures did. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying from a Christian standpoint, Islam is apostate, and so is Judaism. But from a cultural standpoint, yeah, of course. I mean, there's no denying that. But is there anything else, Epic, that you want to discuss or anything? I know we kind of went all over the place. I think it was a really good stream. We touched a lot of topics.
No, I think we're good. I mean, we went, like I said, all over the place. I had a busy day at work, and then Jimmy was sick, who's kind of grab bagged some stuff today. But I do think this idea is something to keep in mind for a future show. This idea of the clandestine world. I mean, in terms of operations with almost everything's an operation. You look at the rival factions here in America with the FBI and CIA and how they competed against each other. Now, J. Edgar Hoover had this thing going with Allen Dulles, right? I mean, not that they were necessarily fighting each other, but Dulles was trying to outdo J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover had his whole huge blackmail scheme going across, everything in politics. He had files on everybody, and then so that not to be outdone, the CIA is trying to do their thing. So. And Dulles, started his whole thing with the blackmail and everything we know today, the sexual blackmail from Project Artichoke originally. I think it was the first one, right? And then it became Midnight Climax, or I might have that backwards, which became MK Ultra. But yeah, very, very well executed, in San Francisco and New York, and that they use that to this day. And so a lot of these things we're talking about, unfortunately, whether it be prostitution rings and human trafficking of any kind, it came from there. This whole idea of trauma-based mind control, sex slaves essentially is a real thing, and they found out about it probably a long time before that. It probably goes back to ancient times, but they weaponized it to use it in modern times. So that's a great subject, actually. But the intelligence agencies themselves is just a good tie-in to start looking at.
Oh yeah, we did cover that a lot. I mean, some people say that the Finders information was a war between the CIA and the FBI.
That's all I got, I guess.
Can you hear? Can you hear me? Oh, sorry, Epic. One last thing, and I'll let you go. Some people say that the finders was an operation between the FBI trying to go after the CIA to some degree, even though the FCIA was involved in it. Some people say it's reversing the Franklin scandal, that the CIA was trying to out the FBI. So, sometimes there might be, even within the world order, struggles between factions that seem like that they are connected at the top and lock at the top. But they could get over battles over each other on lesser things down for a lesser scale. Would you agree on that?
Definitely. I mean, there's no question. Like most people don't know, the FBI has an international wing that they go out and do things outside the United States. Yet they're supposed to be a national law enforcement agency, and just like the CIA supposedly doesn't spy on Americans, but they do spy on Americans. We found that out with Snowden, if you didn't know before, and it all ties into the same kind of thing.
Wait. Edward Snowden's not our guy?
Well, he's a Russian guy now, but he was our guy in the sense of exposing it. But you look at it as a psyop itself to let people know that what they always suspected is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%. Well, Epic, thanks for coming on this evening. I know we went all over the place, but I hope you enjoyed the stream. I love having you on, brother. You're on anytime. You're an excellent researcher. Hopefully we'll do a stream Thursday if you're free. If Jimmy feels better, we'll do our Bin of Perdition stream.
Oh, Charger Raider game,
Okay. We might have to postpone it to another night then.
Maybe after, yeah.
Okay. You take care of yourself, all right? Thank you for coming on.
Have a good one, John.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right. That's it for this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I know we went all over the place, but it was kind of an impromptu stream with Epic. But I love Epic. He's a great researcher. We talk often. He's one of the trusted researchers. We did an excellent show back in the day about the Children of God cult. I'll link a stream that Epic and I did solo together. We're going to do one on Joseph Atwell, refuting him eventually when we get a chance. So hope everybody enjoyed the stream. I have a stream hopefully tomorrow if everything's going good and good health. In the morning, continuing our CMP, Council for National Policy study, finishing up news articles from the late 1990s. You're welcome, Dragon. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Until next time, always read the documents. Good night, everybody.